Hi, everybody. I'm Dominik. I'm GDE in Flutter, working with Very Good Ventures. And actually, we've just opened an office in Poland. So if you look for Flutter job in the neighborhood, we kindly invite you to check this out. And today, we're going to talk about animations. And perhaps many of you know that Flutter and animations work together really nicely. It's like in Flutter, you can do almost any animation that you can imagine. And today, animations are everywhere. Even at DroidCon, every slide that you see going around the venue has some kind of small animations going on, like some kind of rotating things and so on. And these animations can be very different, right? From very small micro interactions where you tap on a button and it just blinks, or you can have a huge apps built mostly using animations. In the center, you can see Reflectly, which was one of the major Flutter apps, and it's purely driven by animations. Animations are the essence of the application. And typically, we don't have much time to work on animations in our day-to-day jobs. Usually, it's left as the last one. And the UI designers don't provide us with any kind of assets or descriptions, what do they want to see, and it's on us to actually implement some of these animations, even though we're not taught to be animators. And today I'm going to show you some kind of tips and tricks how to improve your animation workflow, how to make your work with animations a bit easier and a bit more fun. And I'm going to show you some examples. And the source code and the application that you will see will be available for you. So don't worry. And for the time being, enjoy some of the ideas. Maybe you will be able to kind of introduce them also in your own applications. And it should move to the next slide. Awesome. So whenever you open any kind of animations manual, you will see the implicit animations and explicit animations difference. And you perhaps know that implicit animations are just the things that animate whenever some kind of source data changes. It can be a Boolean flag. It can be age of your user. It can be a date, a time, or whatever. And the explicit animations are the things that you actually need to drive on your own. You have to be conscious when you change something. You have to maybe create your own animation controller or some other thing that will drive this animation. And we will start, of course, with the implicit animations. And as you know, there's a bunch of them. You can animate almost any kind of widget in Flutter. And the list goes on and on. So there's animated container, positioned, opacity, aligned, padding, crossfade, and so on and so on. And anytime you just type animated in Flutter, you will find a bunch of different implicitly animated widgets that allow you to animate their properties. So the key here is that you can animate any property that can be interpolated from one to the other. And so for instance, in this case, sorry about going back and forth, but the thing has a delay. So for instance, in this case, we just have the animated align. And this is implemented in a way that whenever I click on this button, the alignment changes randomly. So this is just simple as to change the value of the alignment to anything else. And in the companion application that you are able to just check out in the GitHub repository, the link will be later in the presentation, I prepared a bunch of different implicitly animated widgets. So whenever you tap on that, you can see things are changing. So in animated container, you can change anything almost. In some other more specific widgets, like animated physical model, and who knows what it is for? What is animated physical model? Is it some kind of physics simulation? I guess almost nobody knows it, but it's just for the elevation animation, right? So this is a base widget for any kind of material thing where you have an elevation that can change. The name doesn't say this, but it's just for that. And this is the alignment that I've shown you before, right? And this is pretty cool. You can just drop in any animated widget, and it will work for you. However, sometimes the presentation doesn't move forward when I click, but sometimes you need to also have something more custom. And here is where implicitly animated widget class comes very handy. And this is when you know that you have a thing that can change, for instance, when some kind of state value changes. But you don't have like a proper animated container or whatever to do it for you. And the implicitly animated widget is an amazing tool. So in this GIF, you can see, or GIF, you can see the circular indicator. And usually when you change the value of the indicator, it just changes like rapidly from 0 to 1, let's say. And what I wanted to have, I wanted to have like a upload indicator that moves smoothly between the values. And the way to do it is just to have the implicitly animated widget. So first thing that you need to do, I hope the code size is enough. First thing that you need to do is just to implement the implicitly animated widget. And this is like equivalent, let's say, to the stateful widget. You have a description class like implicitly animated widget where you define your API. In this case, we just have a progress value and some styling things. And then when you have this, you just need to implement the state of that or the animation. And the base class, which is called animated widget base state, just has this nice property called animation. And you can use this animation to create your twin. And we'll talk about twins in a second, but the point is that you just need to, in this case, you just need to use circular progress indicator. And for the value of that, you need to provide the progress twin. And this progress twin is a thing that you create and you update in the method called for each twin. And in this case, I'm just creating a twin that will animate or interpolate the value from the previous one to the new one with some kind of duration or with some kind of curve that I want to supply. In this case, it's just linear, and this is how you implement this. You can check out the source code later. The documentation for that is also awesome. And here's the other example. And for instance, I created this circular progress indicator, but you can use almost exactly the same code to animate like a text. And in this case, you can see that whenever I click, the text value of the progress also animates nicely. So this is like a very nice thing, and it just takes like 10 lines of code. So the implicitly animated widget is really nice because this will animate the value for you. This is useful when you don't want to actually use any kind of library or animated controller or whatever, animation controller, and this makes your life much, much easier. And this is also available in the app. And the second thing, of course, are explicit animation. And this is when you need to drive your animations solely by yourself. And I'm going to show you some examples how to use it. And it doesn't have to be like animation controller always. It can be something else, like a timer, drive your animation, or just a ticker provider. And based on that, you can use a bunch of different widgets, like scale transition, size transition, fade transition, and the most important, animated widget. And in the application, you will find a bunch of different explicit animations for you to maybe inspire yourself. And if you go to the website that's shown below, you can also see it on the web in a web version. And so in order to use animation controller, you just need to instantiate it in your state, and that's all. The animation controller has this nice properties or methods that you can actually manipulate it in very convenient way. So for instance, when you need to start your animation controller, you just call forward. And there's also another handy method called repeat. So sometimes you just need to have like a oscillating thing, right? Like back and forth, in this case, a glowing indicator. So what you need to do is just to call repeat method and just provide the value repeat true. And this will indefinitely repeat itself. This is very handy. Another 5-10 lines of code, and it just works. However, very interesting thing here is that you can approach this kind of animation in many different ways. Like if you ask somebody, they will tell you a different solution to that. And what I found here is kind of tricky, I would say, because I was trying first to animate the border width, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work this nicely. So what I've done here is that, if I can move to the next slide. So what I've done here is that instead of animating the widget, I just animated the padding. So the padding below the widget that is below is changing with time. So it looks like the widget itself is changing, but it's the padding that's like showing and hiding the underlying circle. So this is like a tricky thing, I would say, but like when you see it, it's obvious. But you have to kind of think from the different perspective in order to how do you want to animate a given thing. Because for the animator, let's say you receive the UI design from the UI agency, they just animate like a size or whatever. But in the implementation, actually, you will have to approach this a bit differently to make your life easier, of course. And when it goes to syntax, you have to use animated builder when you use animation controller. The animated builder is a very smart widget that will rebuild its builder only when the animation controller ticks. And the animation controller will tick on each new frame, unless you stop it, of course. And the child that you provide to the animated builder will not rebuild. Right? Animated builder, very handy widget. It doesn't have to be used with the animation controller. It can be used with any listenable. Like it can be just like I don't know, change notifier. You can just call get some kind of different like a block or I don't know, MobX, Redux, or whatever. Anything that's listenable can trigger animated builder rebuild. Very handy thing. Using this very often. And I've mentioned several times twins, and twins are this like very strange thing. Before I started using Flutter, I've never heard this word, but actually this was used in different fields for a long time. And even today, I just learned that twins come from animation design or motion design, and actually like even Pixar was one of the first companies, if not the first one, that used digital twins. Twins in a meaning that when you have an animation and one frame and the other, you have to actually interpolate the movement between one frame and the other. In the past, you've done this manually. There was like this very tricky things where you were like, when you look at old Walt Disney animations, they were like smashing around. Yeah, this was like a tweening in betweening the frames so that the movement looked real. And there is like even like a Wikipedia page for that. And in our life, in Flutter development, twins are just a thing that allow you to interpolate from one thing to the other. Right, so here we have two ways how to use twins, because again, like in software development, you can do the same thing in many different ways, and the same is with twins. You can, when you have your animation controller, you can just drive the animation controller with your twin, or vice versa. If you have your twin, you can just animate this with your animation controller. And both are the same, and they will just give you the animation object. And this animation object will be used by you whenever you need to actually use it, like for the animation. I know it's like a self-explanatory, right? So twins are very handy, and I think I use them even more often than any kind of animation-related stuff, because they allow you to not only map like from 0 to 1, which is what animation controller provides you with, to any other like scale, maybe from 0 to 10 or -2 to 2 or whatever. You can use any type on that that allows you interpolate between its values linearly. And then what you can do is that you can modify the resulting interpolation with just any curve that you want. You can use any curve manipulations, like you can add them, subtract them, multiply them. There's many things that you can do with that. And in our typical day-to-day development, they are very handy, because when you have any kind of UI component, you don't want it to behave linearly. Like when you have a maybe loading indicator or whatever, you want it like to first like ramp up a little bit and then slow down at the end. Or when you have like some kind of element showing up on the screen, it will be more organic if you will use some kind of decelerating curve or whatever. And sometimes your animator in your UI agency or whatever will provide you with an exact curve that they want to like follow for a given animation. And with twins, you can do it very easily. So if you take a look at the application, you will find a bunch of different twins that you can use and see the difference between them. There is also a very nice documentation page about them. And for instance, like this one is pretty nuts, right? Like it just like waits and then goes. So, and you can create any kind of animation or like movement with that. And with twins, another thing that is handy comes is Twin Animation Builder. And again, you remember I told you about the animation controller and that you can use twins with animation controller. But in practice, you can like skip the animation controller very often. And the Twin Animation Builder is the thing that allows you to don't think about the animation controller, the state or whatever, in very particular case. So let's say you have some kind of a thing that needs to animate with some kind of specific curve, and this needs to be kind of implicit, right? So let's say your state changes and maybe the number of points of a user changed, right? Or and it also needs to happen, let's say, when the screen is shown to the user, when the app launches. And Twin Animation Builder is the thing that allows you to specify this kind of properties, right? You can provide the duration, the tween that you want to have. In this case, it's just a double. But again, it can be any type that supports interpolation. You can provide the curve. And then you just have a builder, and you can use this value. Here, however, you have like you cannot use like a animated scale or whatever. You have to just use like a widget, transform that scale, and on each frame, it will just scale a given thing that you have right there. And if you take a look at the application, I just provided 2 samples of that. So you saw, like when I opened this page, this was increasing from 0 to 1. And now I can just increase it to 10 and to 30 and then back to 1. The nice thing about Twin Animation Builder is that it retains its previous state, right? So whenever anything changes like smoothly, you can animate this really, really easily from the previous point in time. How much time do I have? Okay. So these were like very basic concepts, but like it's worth to just understand that they are there. And in more complex scenarios, you have to use some kind of more elaborate, let's say, approaches. So the first one that you will see in any animation tutorial in like the complex section will be staggered animations. So these are the animations that like contain multiple like transitions. We say that we orchestrate them, like because they can happen from different points, from different angles, and so on. And you see a very basic case here, some kind of dashboard where like things flow from the bottom. Usually you wouldn't do this like so aggressively, like it would be much smoother, right? But it makes the entrance much nicer for the user. And when you take a look at the samples for staggered animations, I find them very difficult to follow. Like everything is in one class, in one widget, and it's very hard to understand what is going on. And for that, I have like a kind of tricky thing to do, where like, again, we have the power of creating our own classes. Like you can create any class you want. And this is a really nice thing in Flutter or in programming in general, that you can create your own widgets, you can create your own things that are very specific to the given problem that you have. You don't have to be very dry. You don't have to be like create reusable solution always. You can just create a one-time solution. And here's like where like if I have to do like a staggered animation, I would just create a very specific class. So what I would do I would just create some kind of builder for myself. In this case, I just called it homepage animated builder because it animates the homepage. And it accepts a builder, which is my transition builder. You can see it's on the bottom right, the type def for that. And it will just give me a child, and it will give me my home page enter animation class. And this home page enter animation, so here's the line where like when it stops working. And my home page animation, enter animation, is just a class that has a bunch of tweens, right? So, and I name them. I use names for them, like header opacity, row 1 offset, row 2 offset, and this makes reading this much easier. And what I do is here is just I have like a bunch of tweens. Like the first one is just like tween from 0 to 1, and I'm using something called curved animation. And the tricky thing, or like the important thing about staggered animations, is that if you take a look at the timeline, you can like see it from 0 to 1, right? So I just realized I have this bottle all the time. So you have timeline from 0 to 1, and you have to like squeeze all these things between this 0 to 1 section. So here where the interval curve comes handy, an interval curve just squeezes the given animation between, for instance, in the first case, from 0 to 0.2, then from 0.1 to 0.25, and so on. And this is like the effect of that is that you have like a bunch of these things coming one by one. In case of the application, you can pause this so you can see like it's actually delayed, right? And I just animate the rows like that. And then when you need to use it, you just use your builder, you get your animation object, and you can just use like a real names animation.row1 offset for your slide transition. And slide transition is just widget that translates or transits the underlying widget with a given animation. The nice thing about it is that the builder will work the same way as animated builder, so it will have the same optimizations. It will only rebuild when you actually need to, when the animation is driven. So this is kind of easy. This is nice to read. You understand what is happening. Everything works fine. And I mentioned several times that you can imagine a timeline, and if you have like a really cool UI agency, they can provide you sometimes with things that we call motion design timeline. And this is like an example from one of the blog posts that I recommend. It shows you like if you want to do this kind of staggered animation, this is the thing that makes the work with that much easier. And you can also do this if you don't have motion designer. You can do it on your own. And let's also take a look at a bit lower level animation control, because if you take a look, for instance, at the source code of the animation controller, you will find that it is actually using something called ticker provider. And often when you create animation controller, you also always need to provide this thing called ticker provider state mixin or whatever. And this is the thing that actually is like from the deeps of Flutter that tells you when the new frame gets rendered. So it will tick on every new frame, and you can use it to drive your own animations. And this is very helpful, maybe when you create like your own game, or maybe you have some kind of more elaborate thing that you need to create, like some kind of, I don't know, chart that animates. So this is where you can actually have a very fine control over your frames of your animation. And how you do it, you just get the ticker provider from this mixin, and you create your ticker, and this ticker will tick on every new frame. And you can do with that whatever you want. You get the time difference from the previous frame. So for instance, when you calculate some physics, maybe you have like a spaceship going around, you know like what was the velocity, and you can calculate the next distance, and this is how you can do like a very nice basic game or whatever. And what I do here is that I'm using change notifier, and change notifier will just provide me with the notify listeners, and I can use it later in my animated builder. All right. The source code is available, of course. And let me show you what I use it for. So in my case, I used this to create this simulation. So this is a Boyd's simulation. And these are like simulation of birds flying around. And you can like change some properties of that, change the speed, add more Boyds, and they just fly around like crazy. You can make them like more willing to turns or not. So, and this is actually using like the sticker provider because I need to calculate some kind of maths equations or like relations on every frame, right? And this is kind of very easy to do with ticker provider. You don't have to think about Flutter. You just get the every frame and the time difference, right? So ticker provider is a thing that tells you when a new Flutter frame is triggered, and a ticker is a thing that will just call a given function every new frame. And another nice thing in Flutter is that it also has some like real physics simulations, right? Because you could just create your physics simulation by like calculating differentials in your special class, but you can also use just simple physics simulations in Flutter. And this case is just like a Spring simulation. And let's say maybe you have like a pop-up that needs to show like from like maybe scare your user or whatever. And you can use this more realistic approach to simulations, because when you have a curve, it can be like not entirely natural. And with the Spring simulation, you can actually create something that feels or can feel more like real life, or maybe actually even more crazy than any curve that you would imagine. This is how you implement this, and you can just use this controller in your animated builder anytime you want. Also available here. So let's recap. As we know, we have a bunch of implicitly animated widgets that can be very handy whenever you need to make some basic animation, or like when you change like the value of points of your user or whatever. You can also use Twin Animation Builder. This is like a combination of animation controller and implicitly animated widget. Then, if you need to do something more special, don't fear to use animation controller. It's pretty cool, easy to use, has a bunch of nice methods to manipulate its values. And if you have to do something more special, more custom, just use ticker provider and change notifier and create your own simulation or animation very quickly. Right? And Spring simulation. There is also some more simulations in Flutter, but I haven't used them. But they are there if you want to make something, some fancy entrances or whatever into your app. That's all for today. I know that there was like a lot of different topics, but I hope that after this you have some kind of maybe inspiration. Maybe you have some component in your app that you want to change right now because like you found some kind of inspiration for how to differently animate a thing. But if you just want to check out the source code, it's available on my GitHub. You can also see the web demo of this application under this URL. And there's also like a ton of different resources for animations. I recommend these talks online, and also there's some packages. I haven't used any packages here, right? This was all vanilla Flutter. But I know there's many different opinionated animation packages that make your life easier. I use them, but all the time I just go back to Flutter because I find that everything I need is there, and it makes my life and like contributing the code anywhere or sharing the code much easier because like you don't have this overhead of another library. That's all, folks. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah.